All right. So today we're going to build out a Django CRUD app. We're going to talk about using the admin panel to import or insert data into our database. We're going to be kind of incorporating the built-in user model in the Django user model. We're going to be talking about styling using CSS and Bootstrap in Django. And we're also going to be doing templates. So breaking out our HTML into smaller files so we don't have to rewrite the same stuff over and over again in the same HTML file. All right, so I'm going to cd desktop cp challenges November Django. I'm just going to say admin. I'm going to open this up into a new VS Code window. All right. So when starting a brand new Django project, what do I want to do first? What do I want to create first?
Virtual environment.
Yep, a virtual environment. And what is the command to create a virtual environment? Whoever said that.
It's Python, tag m, venv, and then the name.
venv, and then the name of the virtual environment, which I'm going to say venv. So it's creating the virtual environment. Should I zoom in more? Is that okay? Is that better? Yep. So I'm going to list everything out, and now I've got my virtual environment. How do I activate my virtual environment? Christian.
You would go with source space venv/bin/activate.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. Now I'm inside of my virtual environment. What's the next thing I need to do? Diana.
You have to install Django. So pip install Django.
Pip install Django, correct. Awesome. So it's installing Django. Great. Now, if I want to use Postgres with my Django project instead of the built-in SQLite database, what else do I need to install? Anybody?
Psycho PG.
Yep, awesome. So I also need to, I'm going to clear this. I need to install Psychob G2. So pip install Psycho PG2. All right, so it's installing it. Hopefully everything works. So in this Django project, I'm going to be creating a blog that just has posts. I'm not going to do with comments right now, but maybe in the future we'll do comments. But right now we're just going to kind of keep it simple because we wanted to go over the admin panel, styling, all that stuff. Cool. So I'm in my
question.
Yep. Go ahead.
With the psychops too, what happens if you keep getting it where it says to do the binary? Is there like something wrong with my stuff that I keep getting?
No, I don't know why that is, but I just, yeah, I actually don't know why they tell you to install the binaries. I just know every single cohort, there's a group of y'all who has to install the binaries. I don't know if Ankur, Chad, or somebody else can shed some light on that for me. I'm not quite sure.
Sorry, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay. And if you install the binaries, everything should still work as desired. But cool. All right, so I'm gonna clear. So in this Django project, I'm gonna create a blog app. So the first thing I'm gonna do is create a Django project called My Site. So I'm just gonna create like a My Site, like go to My Site. So how do I create a Django project? What's the command to create a Django project? Tasneem.
Django-admin start project and name of the project.
Awesome. So Django-admin space start project and then the name of the project. Thank you. I'm going to call this project My Site. All right. So if I list everything out, there's My Site, And now I can go into my site. Oh, actually, am I in here? Uh-oh. So I'm not currently, I haven't opened this into a brand new VS Code window. So what I want to do is first open this up into a VS Code window, and I just want to see what happens. So code space -r space period. What just happened? Did it not? Why don't it? So if I'm listing everything out, but nothing's showing it up in here. Is there a reason? Well, that's odd. I'm going to close that out and reopen it. So new window, where'd it go? Oh, I know why. I already had that window open over here. So here's what we had before. So we have my site. So here I'm in Django admin. I'm inside my site, but I have to go down one more level to get to like the actual Django project. I don't like having these nested like this. So I'm actually going to remove, so first thing I'm going to need to do is source venv bin activate to activate my virtual environment. So is anybody kind of tired of like having to create a project and then having like a nested my site thing? I see some heads shaking. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to completely remove that Django project. So rm/rf my site. So there, I completely got rid of my Django project. So instead of making it nested, I can actually make the manage.py file and like the Django project at the same level of me as this Django admin part. So I can do Django space admin, start project, my site, space period. So instead of having a nested my site directory, the manage.py is going to be at the same directory or same level as like the Django admin. So if I do that, oh, what happened? Spelled start project wrong. There we go. So here's my site and here's my manage.py, and cool. So I don't have to go one level deeper to get to my Django project because I'm already in this directory called Django admin. So this is like where my Django project wants to reside.
Tom, is there a reason for that outside of just it looking nicer?
Not really. So like if I went up a level and listed everything out, so I've got my main, like all these other projects here. If I ran that Django admin start project in here, that would make sense to have like the my site right here, and then I have to go one level deeper to get to the actual Django project. But I already created a directory for this project called Django admin, and so I want the Django project to reside directly on the next level or the one level deeper. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it, because I don't want to keep having to go down multiple levels. It's kind of just personal preference. But just letting everyone know that that is you can do that. All right. So I'm going to clear. Cool. So I've created my Django project. Now I want to create a Postgres database called like blog or something like that. So how do I create a database from the command line? Kyle, partner.
Create DB.
Create DB and then followed by whatever I want to call it. Cool. Created a database called blog, or I can call it my site or whatever. The next thing I want to do is register my Postgres database to my Django project. So if I come down here in my Django settings, I can see my installed apps. I haven't created any apps yet. Coming down here, so here's my databases. Right now it's utilizing the built-in SQLite database, but I want to use a Postgres database. And I want the name of my database is called blog. Cool. We should all be kind of pretty familiar with that whole process right now. All right. So the next thing we'll want to do is to create, clear that, actually create an app called blog, a Django app called blog. Jeff, what's the command to create a new Django app? James.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, no, no, you're good.
You could use Django-admin start app blog.
Django-admin start app blog. Let's see what happens. Uh-oh. Oh. So we have migrations. Okay. I didn't realize that Django admin start app blog worked. What's the other command to make that work?
Be the same as start project. So Django, Python manage.py start project blog.
Or start app. So
Start app.
Yep.
Right.
Start app. So that's the same thing as doing that. I didn't know that you can do that. I just wanted to see what would happen if I did that. Sweet. I learned something new. Cool. So we've got my site Django project, and we've got our Django app called blog. All right. Now, what's the next thing I should be doing after I create an app?
Insert it into your installed apps in my site settings.
All right. Yep, exactly. Inside my site settings, come in here. Let's go up here. So down into installed apps, I can install that blog. I'm going to put a comma there just for any additional apps I might add in the future or a next developer. So I'm being nice for them. So installed apps, great. So inside my blog app, I'm going to go into my models and create some models, or create a model. What's over here? All right. So I'm going to create a post model. So class post inherits from the models module, model class. What the hell? I'm going to say author. So the author is going to be a user, but it's going to use the built-in user model in Django. So Django comes with a pre-built user model already. So I'm going to models foreign key. So if I come over here to my site settings, auth, I just want to see if there's something in here. All right, it's not in there yet. So inside of Django, they have a built-in user model, and I can access that user model by doing settings.auth user model. So auth user model is a constant that already comes inside of the Django project, and this references the built-in Django authorization, the built-in user model that is used for authentication. So I'm going to do on delete equals models.cascade. So this is how we access the built-in user model. Now you can modify this user model. You can write your own user model. You can extend this user model. So this user model has certain attributes onto it, like in a table. You can add additional columns to that table if you wanted to. But right now we're just going to use the basic built-in user model. And we'll have to import the settings file. So from Django.config, import settings. So this is how we use the built-in user model. Other things we might want is the title, models.char field, max length, 200, text. So this is like the body of the post, models. Let's do a text field because this might be more long form. And the difference between a char field and a text field is that a text field does not require a max length, but I think there is a default max length of, I can't remember, but there is like a default one. Also, let's do a publish date. Publish date equals models.date time field. Let's do blank equals, not blank equals true. So it's all, we're able to keep it blank as well as we're able to keep it null when we first create it. Lastly, I want to kind of make it nice when we print this out. So I'm going to do def dunder string, takes in self, and it just returns the self.title. What questions do you have about this built-in or this post model? All right. So once we're done creating a model and we want to insert it into our database, what is the command to do that?
Make migrations.
Just make migration. So Python manage.py,
Make migration and then the name of our app.
Make migrations, and then let's do the name of our app blog. So what does make migrations do?
It's a change that you made to your blog, basically.
Updates your database.
Yeah, exactly.
So make migrations updates the database.
No, it just creates that file, right?
Say it one more time.
It like
Brendan?
populates your migrations file, and then when you migrate it, it actually makes its way to your database.
Yeah, exactly. So make migrations just makes a file, a migration script, initial.py. That's the first one. And it's the first thing it does is create a script that when executed, when we run that migrate command, actually inserts it into our database.
Nobody likes to know it all, Brendan.
All right. All right, we made migrations. Now, what do we want to do?
Migrate.
Yep, let's go ahead and migrate. So Python manage.py migrate. So it ran, here's our initial blog migration script, and here's all the other ones that are built in that already come with Django. So let's go ahead and actually run this. Python manage.py and run server. Hopefully it works. I'm going to come up here and open up a new window. Come over here. So I'm going to go to localhost 8000. And here we have our Django that's running. But let's go ahead and go to the Django admin panel. So here's the Django admin panel. That's great, but I don't have a user to log into the Django admin panel. So let's go ahead and create that user. So I'm going to clear that. And how we create that user is we need to create a super user. So I'm going to run Python manage.py, create super user, all one word, and run that. And says username, leave blank to use the, like that's my Mac username. So I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to have my email address. I'm going to just leave that blank for it right now. Password, I'm going to say 123. Password again, 123. And it gives me a warning. Hey, so it's got some validation stuff in here. Your password is too short. It must contain at least 8 characters. Password is too common. The password is entirely numeric. We can override that by just saying yes. So there we go. And all this stuff right here is already actually from Django settings. So auth password validations. This is what's actually being ran when you're creating a password. So password validation, minimum length validator, common password validator, numeric password validator, user attribute similarity validator. So that's what's actually being ran when I'm creating a password to just make sure that my password meets the minimum requirements. But we can override that. We can even delete this stuff if we wanted to, if we didn't want those errors to come up. All right, let's run that again and run that server. Cool, it's running. Did I delete out of there? Here it is. So in here, I'm gonna refresh, or actually I'm just gonna go to admin. Cool, I'm gonna log in, TA preet, and 1, 2, 3, enter. So I've got my groups. So these are already built in and my users. So this is the user that I created, the super user, and this is the built-in user model. So it comes with email address, first name, last name, staff status. Cool. But I noticed that posts, my post model isn't in there at all. And what I need to do is actually register this model to the admin site. I need to register it there. So under my blog app in admin, right here, I can register my models. It tells me exactly what I need to do. So I need to say from models, I need to bring in my post model. From models, import post. And here I can do admin.site. So the admin site, I need to register the post model. And now if I refresh this, so if I go back to home, my posts show up there. And I can say like how to register models to admin Django. Let's see if it says anything here. And this is kind of very similar, kind of what it tells me to do. So you can add additional models by comma separating them. So yeah. So cool. So I'm at my Django admin panel. Let's go ahead and create some posts. So add post. So notice how these are what's in my model. So author, title, text, publish date. So I can say author, drop down, TAP if there's only one user in here. This is my first post. This is the content of my first post. And I can just say like today and now, save and add another. This is my second post. Here's some other data. Let's just add one more. Third post. Cool. And today, now, save. So there I've got my 3 posts. This is my first post, second post, and third post. All right. So let's go ahead and actually start creating an app. So actually, I'll pause right there. What questions do you have about that process of, creating a Django project, creating an app, creating some models, registering your app to the Django admin panel or admin dashboard?
you hadn't used the built-in models, you wouldn't have got any of that capability?
As far as
Like being able to go to that admin page and enter data.
yeah, I don't think I would be able to do that because all the if I so yeah, like all this stuff, like I think when I'm running those migrations, that's what's adding the user model, the groups, all that stuff. And if I go to like Postico, if I want to inspect that app or the blog, so all of this stuff from here, Django admin log, all that was when I ran those migrations. So all that was ran when I ran that migration. So I wouldn't have access to all this stuff if I didn't run that. So yeah. So this is like the built-in user model. This is what it comes with. A password, last login is super user. It's a true username, first name, last name, email, is staff, is active, and the date joined. And you can extend this too. You can add additional columns onto it or override it.
Tom, can you add abilities to add like images in this as well?
Yeah, there is a way to add images. So Django image field. So there's a way to manage files. Hold on. So yeah, there's essentially like a field for files. So it's the file field. So there's a way you can add files, whether it's audio, images, but I'll say this, adding files to fields is really, I don't want to say really difficult, but it takes, it's not as simple as like a char field. It requires you to do some digging and manipulating files into bits and just all of that stuff. But yeah, it is possible. All right. Cool. So I've got my models. Now let's actually create a page for posts. So in my admin, I want to be able to go to posts and see my posts. So right now I don't have any posts. So the first thing, what's the process for URLs? So where do I want to add my URLs first?
In your blog URLs py file that you need to, or sorry, in your my site URLs py file, you want to connect it to your blog.
Perfect. So my Django project has a URLs file, and that's where I want to start. So this is where I'm going to do path/posts. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring in the include. And then when I want to go to posts, so I'm going to do path posts / I want to include. So where do I want it to go look after I go to / posts /. So I'm going to include blog.urls. So I want to look at that file to see now what I want to look at. So I'm bringing here. So again, in my Django project, my site, I'm going to the path posts, and I want to include the blog URLs. So I'm coming in the blog, URL. Yep.
I think include goes after path with Django URLs.
Oh, thank you. Cool. So include, cool. So now I'm in blog. Now I want to create a URLs file inside of my blog, urls.py. And in here, I want to, from Django URLs, import the path. I also am going to want to import all the views from inside of this directory. I'm going to import all the views. So I can say URL patterns equals path. And when I want to just go to posts / and nothing else, so nothing comes after the /, this is where I want to go to. So I don't need to include anything right here. So in here, I want to go create a views post list. So I'm going to create a view method called post list, which is going to display all the views. And I want to name this because I might want to use named URLs. When I reference this URL pattern, I want to call it post list. Cool. So if I refresh there, oh, I get an error. So no named module called blog URLs. So if I refresh that, okay, cool. So now it says path here, views, post list, name, post list, module, blog, views has no attribute post list. So I created my URL patterns. Now I need to create my views. So I'm in my view. So I need to import my post. So from my models, I need to import the post model. And down here, I can say def post list. That takes in a request, and I need to do something with that request. So what do I want to do in the post list? I want to display all the posts. How do I go about grabbing all the posts from the database?
It would be post or blog.objects.get. That's all, or .all.
Okay, so post equals, you said blog. So blog is the name of my app, but it's not the name of my model. So,
yeah, post.
So post.objects I can do all, but what I want to do, I want to order them when they were actually published. So there's another thing called order by, and I want to order it by whatever, where'd my model go? Where else? I want to order it by the published date. Cool. So in here, I'm going to return, render. I'm going to render the request. It takes in 3 arguments. The request, it's going to also take in what HTML template I want to render when I run this. So I want to render the blog post list.html template, and then whatever data I want to pass in. And what type of data structure do I need to pass in to a HTML template?
Needs to be a dictionary, right?
A dictionary, exactly. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a data variable as a dictionary. I'm going to say post and post. So I'm going to actually say posts right here. So I'm creating a data dictionary instead of having to put that all right here. So here's my dictionary. I'm going to pass in that dictionary right there.
So you want it ordered by publish date. It's not a problem that it's in a dictionary and you're trying to order it, or?
No. So it's ordered right here. And then, so right here, it's just an ordered by the published date. And then I pass that essentially almost like an array. It's a query set in here as posts. So once it's right here, it's already ordered by the published date. That help answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Oh, so here it looks like I'm getting an error, invalid syntax. Oh, I see I have a period there. Let's do that. Cool. So now let's come here. I'm going to refresh that. Cool. It says template does not exist at posts. So blog post list HTML. Great. It's because we haven't created that template yet. So the next thing I need to do is inside of my, I'm going to close that. instead of my blog app, create a templates directory. Inside my templates directory, I'm going to create another directory named, which is called the same name as my app. So blog. And inside of my blog directory, I'm going to create that post list.html template. Cool. So in here, I can actually create my post list. So I can do div, I'm going to do h1. I'm going to create a link to my blog. And I'm going to do href. And when I use this href, equals, should be a, I'm going to say, just go to, actually, for right now, I'm just going to do this, /. And so when I come over here, I refresh that. Uh-oh, it's still not showing up. What's happening? Template post list does not exist. Run that again. Come over here. There we go. So I've got my blog. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. So I want to go to posts, like something like that. So if I refresh, still not working. Maybe I have to restart the server. If things aren't working, you can restart the server. There we go. So I'm going to posts like that. All right, the next thing I want to do is actually loop through this. Oh, go to views. There we go. I want to loop through this post. So I can say for post and posts, I'm going to copy some HTML over and we'll walk through it. Then I'm going to do N4. So for post and post, renders a div. It's going to render the post title, have a thing called published, and displays the publish date. And then it's going to have post text. So it's going to display the text. Also, it's going to have this line breakers break attribute, which is a built-in thing in Django that allows you to, it's a built-in tag that allows you to do certain things like block, comment, filter. There's like a bunch of stuff, bunch of different ones. So line breaker converts all new lines in a piece of plain text. So essentially after that value, after it texts, it's going to make a line break. So now if I refresh this, still not working. So if I kill the server, run the server. Uh-oh. Why isn't it doing that? So for post and posts, oh, there we go. So notice I call the dictionary key post. So I need to do posts. There we go. Cool. So here's my blog. Pretty nice, right? Really good blog. First post, second post, third post. All right. Next, what do we want to do? It looks pretty good. Like this is like a really good design blog, right? All right. It sucks. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit better. So I'm going to bring in Bootstrap. So I'm going to say Bootstrap. So here's Bootstrap. So I'm going to say get started. And I'm going to use this first CDN here. So this is how we're going to bring in Bootstrap into our HTML. So I'm going to copy that. And inside of our post list, where do we usually import CSS in our HTML?
Head.
In the head. So let's go ahead and create a head and import that in there. So I think we've mentioned this before, but yeah, this Bootstrap, if we literally just go to this part, this is all the Bootstrap, everything that Bootstrap is right here. So this is what gives us access to having Bootstrap styling in our blog post. So now if I come over here and I refresh this, let's see if it looks any different. Cool. It's starting to look a little bit better. So it changed the font, changed these links. Cool. Questions about how to import Bootstrap into your templates. All right. But now let's actually bring in some custom styling that we want to do. So inside of our blog, if we want to write a raw CSS to make some customizations, we can also do that as well. You can bring as much CSS files as you want inside the head. So the first thing I want to do is create a directory called static. And this is where all our static files go, such as CSS, images, it could be anything. So static. I'm going to also create inside of our static, I'm going to create a CSS directory. This is where all our CSS is going to reside. And then inside of our CSS directory, I'm going to call it blog CSS. So this is our CSS that we're going to write for our application directly inside this blog CSS. So I don't like how this goes directly up to the edge of the screen. So I'm going to add some padding to the entire body. I'm going to say body, padding left. I'm going to make it 15 pixels. Also, let's actually bring this over here. Also, all the A tags, I want, let's see. Yeah, all the A tags, I want to have some styling as well, but I want to do it inherit from H1. So H1, A tag, as well as H2, A tag. So any A tags that are children of H1 tags and H2 tags, I want to have the color equals, I'm going to bring in this color right here. So it's red color. All right. So if I refresh that, nothing actually works yet because I still have to import this directly into this blog CSS directly into my post list. And how I do that is I'm just going to create a link tag and do relation. What is it? Style sheets, style sheet, and also the href, where what I'm actually referencing. And what I'm actually referencing is the static files. So this whatever's in this static. So I need to go static. So it's a static file, and then the route to that. So CSS blog.css. But we're still not done yet because we need to import our static files into our postlist.html. So at the very top of the screen, outside of the head, I'm going to say, hey, load the static files. So this is saying this finds like the path to wherever the static directory is. So right here, it's in blog CSS or blog app in the static files. So when I run static, it brings that path to the static file here, and then I just append CSS blog CSS, and it should import my CSS colors or my CSS styling into my post list HTML. If I refresh that, still not working. Let's see if this works.
Tom, I think you have some typos, like on line 4, you have a comma. And
Oh,
then
thank
in
you.
the CSS, you need semicolons after your.
I think this should still work if I don't have any, but it's best practice to have semicolons at the end of every, regardless. So I'm going to clear that. Thank you. So I'm just going to rerun that server. There we go. So I added some padding and I changed the colors to my A tags. Questions about, so let's just actually, so I brought in Bootstrap, specifically Bootstrap 5.0, the beta 2. There's different Bootstrap versions. You can use Bootstrap 4, Bootstrap 3, something. They all have kind of different functionality, but this is the most up to date. I don't even know if it's up to date, most up to date because it's in beta 2. But this is where this is what the this is where it says to get started. So I'm using this one. And then if I want to override some of that or add some custom styling inside of my blog app, I need to create a static directory. And inside my static directory, I created a CSS directory. And inside that CSS directory, I created a blog.css file. And I added my CSS styling to that file. And then in order to import it into my post list HTML, I need to add this load static at the very top of the file. And then I just also have to link it directly to that blog, the CSS blog CSS file by doing href brackets, the %, static, which is like the directory or the path to the static file or static directory, and then followed by where that CSS file is located within the static directory. Cool. Questions about what I just did about loading CSS and Bootstrap?
Why the use of the word static as opposed to the other word?
That's just Django's, it's a reserved word in Django static files. So that's just kind of how it does that. And you can change some of this configuration inside of the My Site settings. So you might see something that says like static files. So like static URL right here. So we can change that if we wanted to. But it's best practice probably keep it the same.
Why do you decide to use Bootstrap or not? Like in this case, we're not really getting much out of it. Do you just use it in case you want to build on and have all that built-in functionality? Or is it better if you really want, like if this is all we wanted, to just not use it at all?
It just makes it look a little bit prettier.
So would you recommend that kind of be the default to bring in Bootstrap or some other framework first?
Yeah, I mean, what it gives access to, it's instead of having you do all the customization, CSS customization and messing around with styling and placement on the screen and like Flexbox and like grid, Bootstrap has all that kind of built in for it in it. So it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So you don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, I get it does a lot of stuff, but I guess my question is, when do you bring it in or not? Or would you suggest just always bringing something in to start with?
It honestly depends on the project, but yeah, I would always use a CSS framework for styling, at least part of a CSS framework for styling. Gotcha. Instead of doing it all custom yourself, unless you want to unless you want to be like a CSS, like very competent in CSS and HTML, highly encourage you to use a CSS framework such as Bootstrap, Semantic UI, there's Balma CSS. So like Balma.io. This is another one. So majority of the time on the job, you'll be using some CSS framework, unless it's like, your team has a tremendous amount of front end resources that write their own frameworks. But yeah. Anyway, a good question. What other questions do you have? All right, let's go ahead and, all right. So we imported Bootstrap. We created some custom CSS by creating a static directory, creating a CSS directory, and then putting our blog.css file in there and putting our CSS properties, our styling inside that blog CSS. Imported it into our head inside of the post list HTML. Let's keep on adding some styling to this. So let's change some fonts. So Google Fonts have a bunch of open source fonts that you can just directly embed into your HTML. So does anybody have any suggestions on what font we might want to use?
Comic Sans.
No, we're not using Comics. Look at this. So here is, it looks like, I don't know if this is free or not. Categories, I'm going to do sans serif. And let's find something in here. Does anybody have a recommendation?
Gothic A1. How about that?
Where's that?
I think it's a Google font.
Gothic. Okay, perfect. All right. So here's the Gothic A1 font, so we can like test what it might look like. This is a Google font. Does it look nice? Question mark. So in here we have all the different styles. We have thin 100, extra light 100. So the 100, 200, that represents like the font weight, how thick the font is. As you can see, it's really thin right here. And as you go down, it gets thicker. So black 900, extra bold. So anyway, so we can kind of look at what styles we want. We can select multiple of these styles. So we can say like regular we want bold, and we want, extra light. And as you add these styles as you want them right here, you can see it produces that link for us already. And also how we reference that in our styles sheets. So if I want this, pre-connect, all right, it looks like that. So it looks like there's two link. Let's see if this works. All right, so I'm gonna come over here inside of our head tag. I'm gonna copy these two link. So I don't know what this pre-connect does. I think this might just be default, but also here, this directly links to that specific Google font. And you can kind of see it's Gothic A1. We're importing the weight 200, 400, 700, and some other attributes. Cool. So once we do that, let's actually bring in some other stuff. So if I wanted to actually add that, I can say font family. And I can look at what I actually need for that. So I can say like font family, like so. Cool. So Gothic A1. Now if I come over here and look at it and do a refresh, there it goes. It kind of changed. Cool. Looks a little bit better. So now there is one thing that's kind of bothering me now. So when I go to blog, or click my blog, it goes directly to this posts /posts. And that's not really good, because what if this URL changes? What if we decide to change our URLs at some point? We'd have to go into all of our HTML templates and see where we are changing the posts or going directly to posts, and we'd have to change that to whatever that new URL is. So we're hard coding that in, which we don't want to do. So we want to manually, or I'm sorry, have it be dynamic. So we can make it what is called a named URL. So we can say, hey, URL post list. Whoop. I'll actually make it just a little URL post list. And what this does, and again, you're going to need spacing in between those here. This says, hey, look at wherever URL that has the name post list and render that template or render that view. So here, if I click, so let's just refresh this. If I click blog, what that's doing, it's saying, hey, go look at the URLs. So I'm come over here to the URLs. Look at any URL with the name post list, which is right here, and render that view. So that goes into views, comes over here, post list, and it renders all of that. So that's called a named route or named URL. And that's good practice. So what I'm going to actually do is override some of this. I'm going to bring in some HTML. To make it more in line with something. So I brought it, I'm still doing load static, and now I've got this HTML tag. I still have the head tag. And now I've just got some classes. I've got some containers. These are specific to Bootstrap. So, and also some custom CSS that I'm actually going to bring in as well. So if I refresh that, so I've got some indentation now, but I'm also going to bring in some CSS. So I'm going to overwrite some of the CSS. So I'm going to overwrite that. I'm going to take that down. I'm going to change that. Instead of lobster, I want to use the Gothic one. Cool. So I've got page header, top margin, etc. So now if I refresh that, cool. Now I've got an actual blog, like nav bar, like a header, and now I've got like the publish date is a little bit different color. Cool. Questions about that? So I literally just added some divs, used some Bootstrap classes, and also had some custom classes that I created here. All right. Actually indent that a little bit. Cool. And everything still works. Cool. But now once I want to, if I want to do like a post detail HTML and I still wanted to use all of this, I'd have to import this into like a post detail HTML, which I don't want to do because you don't want to be reusing the same code or rewriting the same code. So this is where we call templates. So say if I go to like Amazon.com, and no matter what page I go to, like, so if I click on, oh, cool. Here, I still get the same title every single time. All right, I get the same nav bar every single time. If I click here, I get the same nav bar every single time. Do you think in Amazon, they've got in their HTML, they've got the same head and title on every single HTML page? No, they don't. They have this located in one file somewhere, and this file is loaded every single time you visit like a new page. So if I come here, like this is the same file. So what we want to do is create a like a base template that loads every time we visit a page. So for example, maybe we want to load the head every single time, and maybe we also want to load this this title bar, or this nav bar. So what we can do is inside of our app, inside of templates, I'm going to create, so blog, I'm going to create, so we have our HTML or post list HTML. I'm going to create a base template. So I'm going to create a file just called base.html. And what do I want to include in there? What part of the post list do I want to include in there? Let's say I want to include everything up until I just start displaying the posts. So I'm just going to copy this all over to my base template and remove this part. Actually remove that as well. And I want to load, I want this to load first, and then I want to import, essentially embed or insert this HTML inside of here. So I can say block content, and this content, I can call this anything I want, but I'm just going to call it content because this is where the main content of the page is going to be. And I'm going to say end block. So this is block content. All right. So then in my post list HTML, I'm going to get rid of all of this. And so it's only going to be rendering this post, so all the posts. But the thing I need to do is first, so let's actually move this around a little bit. When I come to this view, it renders the post list HTML, which is right here, but I also want it to render the base HTML. So inside my post list HTML, I want to extends the blog /base.html. So this is saying, hey, load the base HTML file first, and then import this HTML inside of this base right here. But we explicitly have to say like, hey, where do we want to import this into this file? So what we want to do is say, hey, right here, this is the block content. So I'm going to say block content right there. And then we want it to end right here as well. Whoop. So again, when I go to posts, the post list, it renders this post list HTML file. It imports essentially the base HTML, loads this up, comes down here, says, oh, hey, there's block content. Let's look where the block content is right here. So, okay, there's block content. Render this as well. Okay, then it ends the block right there. So, okay, ends the block, and then it renders the rest of the file. So if this worked right, let's just refresh this. And look, nothing really changed. I'm refreshing it. Everything works as desired. But if I change that, if I said like, hey, H1, here is the base HTML. And if I refresh this, notice how here's the base HTML. And I can also say like, here's the start, or yeah, like, so if I refresh, here's the base HTML, it loads all this, and it comes down here and then loads that as well. So I'm going to delete that. What questions do you have about like the base template that we want to load on every single site or on every single HTML?
If you wanted to override like styling in the post list HTML or the content, where would you place that? Would you just put it under the under the block content or something like that?
You mean say override to like make this display
If you just
something?
wanted to use, like, say, if you wanted to use a different font or something like that for the content for a certain page.
Oh, you would just have like, for this page, you just create like a class of like something different, like something, I don't know, new, or like, I don't know, title or something. And then in your CSS, you would have like a title. You would just have a different class name or ID and reference that in your blog CSS. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, pretty much. It's
Okay.
a simple answer.
Cool.
Hey, Tom, is it possible to do multiple block contents in the same page?
Yeah, I believe there is. You just have to make sure. So if I did block content, I just want to see if something else. I'm going to try it. I haven't done this in a long time. So block, block footer. So I'm calling it block footer, and block. And I can say like, whoop, block footer. This is the footer. If I refresh that. So yeah, you can do stuff like that. You just have to make sure whatever you're calling the block is the same in the templates. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Cool. All right. So now let's go ahead and so we're rendering. Everything's still looking good. Cool. Now, when I click on this, I want it to go to an individual post. So again, we're going to repeat, create a URL, create the view, create the template. So URL, it's going to create that new URL. So we want to go to use the integer using the post ID. And we want this to say post detail page. We also want the named route to be post detail. Cool. So now we'll go to the view. We're going to create a view called post detail. Takes in the request, also takes in the post ID. Post ID. And then we want to grab the individual post equals post.objects.get. Say ID. We can say primary key. We can also say PK. That's the same thing. But ID equals post underscore ID. I'm going to do data equals post equals post. And I want to return the render method that takes in 3 arguments, the request, the template, so post detail.html, which we still have to create. And then we're going to pass that individual post data into that template. Cool. So the next, we're going to have to create the post detail template. So there we go, post detail.html. There we go. And I'm going to use the post list. So again, I can pretty much do all of this, the same thing. I'm going to extend the base HTML. And I'm going to copy this over for the sake of time. So I'm going to have a div. I'm going to say, hey, if the post has a publish date, render the publish date right here as a date. So if that, and then end the if statement. And then I'm going to also do render the post title as well as the post text. Cool. So let's go back to the post list right here. So notice how, well, let's actually go back and refresh this. Hopefully it still works. Okay, nothing's broken. If I click on this, I want it to go to the actual post ID. So if I go here, cool, I've got my first post ID. Go to second. Here's my second post, third post. Great. But when I click from the post list, it's not taking me anywhere. So again, I want to use a named route here. So I can say URL, render the post detail URL. And I'm going to say, hey, the post ID in there equals the post ID from here. So post publish date, post ID uses the post ID. Need the parenthesis or the percent signs. So it passes this post ID into the post detail URL right here, post ID. Then it renders this post detail view, comes into here, passes that post ID in here, gets that post from the database, sets it to a variable, creates a dictionary, passes that data into the detail page, post detail page. Then it comes in here, extends the base HTML and says, hey, if there's a publish date, render the publish date, ends that if statement, and then renders the post title and post text. So if I click back, actually just go to posts right there, refresh. There's my first post. There's my second post. Cool. I can even like create a back button in here if I wanted to. So like button back. I can say like, or like create a URL, a tag. If I wanted to. Something like that. So refresh that. Not my blog. I wanted to say back. Cool. All right. Questions about getting to the post detail page? All right, let's create a let's create a form to create a new post. So first thing I need to do is create a form. So inside my blog, I'm going to create a directory called forms. I'm not a directory. Scratch that. A file just called forms.py. And these are all my model forms for this application. So you can create forms for that relate directly to models in your database, and they're called model forms. So if you could say like how to create a form from a model, so I already Googled this. Here's like a classic example. You can pretty much use this as a reference. So right here. So I'm just going to use this. I'm going to copy this over to my form. And well, I can use that. So I'm going to say, hey, from Django forms, import the model form. And from my models, import not the article, but the post. And then I can just emulate this architecture. So class post form, inherit the model form. And then this has another class meta. And this class meta has two attributes or a couple attributes, but you can also have more attributes. I want to know what model I'm going to be using. I'm using the post model. And I also want to know what fields do I want to actually display. So I want to display, I can do the title. I can even do the author if I wanted to, but I'm just going to display the title and the text field. Cool. So now I want to create, let's create the link to a new form. So how do we want to do this? So I can write, I need like somewhere in here I can say like, hey, import or include a new, write a new post. I'm going to actually include that in my base HTML. So I'm going to create something. So I'm importing this. This is like a chevron. So if I refresh this, it's probably going to break. So no reverse match, no new post. So right here, I'm just going to comment this out initially. Actually, delete that. Oop. And instead of going there, I'm just going to go to /new. Yeah, just /new. If I refresh that, so cool. So notice how I've got this little chevron or whatever you want to call it. This is my thing I'm going to use to create a new post. So if I click that, notice how it goes to /new. But I actually want it to go to posts/new. Posts/new. So if I click there, there is no template. There's no URL pattern that goes to new. So let's go through that process of creating a path to /new, which renders views/new post. And let's call that new post URL called new post. All right. Now let's go to views and let's create a new post.
You have a typo in your path.
In my path?
Yeah, you have to add an H to the word path.
Thank you. Whoop, not a J. Takes in the so I'm back here in my views. I take in the request. And now whoop, I can say, hey, create a new instance of this post form, and render something. Return, render the request, the template blog, post form.html, which we still have to do. And for data, I'm going to include a couple of things. I'm going to include the form instance, as well as what type of form it is. Is it a new form? Is it an edited form? So I'm going to say type of request. It's going to be a new. So this dictionary has two keys on it, type of request, it's new, and the data. I'm also going to have to import some stuff in here. So from forms, import post form. So I need to actually import the post form to use it here. All right, next thing I need to do, again, inside my templates, I need to create a post form.html template. And I'm going to emulate this. So I'm going to extend the base HTML and the block content. And then my form is going to go inside of here. I'm going to just copy some stuff over. Let's take a time. So in here it renders an H2 tag, takes in the type of request. So it'll say like new post. And I'm going to actually capitalize this N. New post. Then it creates a form. The method is, it's going to be a post request. The class is post form. And we need this CSRF token for security reasons. And then I'm doing the form as P, so as paragraph. And then I'm going to have a button that has a button that says save. There's as P, there's a couple other ones we can do, but this is all built into Django. It makes a form really easy to make. in Django. It does all the heavy lifting for us. So if I come over here and go back and refresh, and if I did everything right, I should have a form. It says new post. Cool. So I want to say like, this is a new post. This is a new post. And then I click save, and it didn't do anything. And I can come over here to see if my post got saved, and it didn't get saved. So why is that? So when I click save, where does it go? It essentially runs this again. And it doesn't know what to do with that request when I click save. So here I need to say, hey, if the request, let's print this request and see what that request looks like. So if I refresh that, you can kind of see the request down here. We got this WSGI request, get post new. Cool. And now if I say like test, click save, come down here. Again, I see this. So this WSGI request, it's a get request, but this other one, when I posted it, it's a post request. And that is coming from this method type post. So I can even say, where am I printing that off? Print request dot method to see what kind of method it is. So if I come over here and refresh this, it resubmitted that post request. So there it's post. But if I come over here, click that, it's a get request. So let's go ahead and do that test again. So it's a post request. So now we know what kind of method it is. Now we can do some logic here and say if the request dot method equals post request, do something. I can say, hey, the form. So I'm going to do print the request dot post. See what that looks like. So I'm getting the printing the actual post request. Click save. Now you can see down here I'm printing the post request. And if you look down here, you can see this is what it's printing. It's a query dict. It's got that CSRF token that we're attaching to the form. And then it also has the title and the text. And so that's associated with the actual form, the post form, inside of our post form fields. And also it's associated with our model. So we can say, hey, if the form equals post form, I can put that stuff, the request dot post inside of that form, and I can say, hey, if the form dot is valid, valid is a built-in method in Django that determines whether or not the information I'm passing into the post or into the post form is actually valid to this form. If it's not, it won't work. So I'm going to say, hey, is this the request, the post request, and I'm passing it into the post form, is it valid? If it is, do something. So I'm going to say, hey, post equals form dot save. And I don't want it to save it directly to the database because I'm only passing in the title and the text right now. And I also need to pass in the author and the publish date. So I'm going to say, hey, commit equals false. So don't save it directly to the database yet. And I'm going to try to get the author. So the post.author equals user.objects.first. So it's going into the user model and grabbing the very first user in the database. This is a really it's not best practice to do this because I'm just assuming that there's only one user in our database. I'm just going to grab that user. So it looks like I also have to import from Django contrib auth models, import the user model. So that gives me access to the users. I'm going to also import redirect, which is another thing similar to render, but it just redirects to a different template. And I'm also going to import date time because I need to deal with the date time field here. So I'm going to say, hey, post publish date equals date time dot date time dot now. And after all that, I'm going to actually save that to the database. So I'm adding these additional fields to the post. So you can actually, if I print this, the post, you'll be able to see it. So if it's a post request, add a user to the post form or to the post, add the publish date to the post as well, and then save it to the database. Else, do all this. Whoop, not else like that. So once I save it to the database in here, I need to do something else to it. So this is where I want to return the redirect. And I want to go to the post detail URL and pass in the post ID equals post ID. So if everything still worked, if I refresh it, click there. This is a test post content. If I save it, it redirected me directly to post 4 up here and directly to the post. And now you can see there's my post right there. If you look up here, where'd it go? Right here, when I clicked the form, when I printed the post right here, look at what it printed. It just printed the title of the post because in my models, this is what it's printing, just the title. Pause for questions. What questions do you have about creating a new post and grabbing the first user in the database, first and only user in the database? This isn't, once we actually get into like being able to, so if you're a logged in user, there's other things you can pass in the request to find the user, whether it's that user is allowed to make posts and stuff like that. But right now, this is how we're extracting our user from the database. Any other questions? So we've got a new post.
I have a question actually.
Yep, go ahead.
Have to catch an error like if the form is invalid?
Yeah, so there is a way to do that. We can do exception errors in Django. Like you can bring in error reporting 404. So yeah, I mean, there's ways you can do catch errors. And Django, they've got a bunch of different ways to get errors. They've got like built-in methods for errors. So if you get an error, to tell it to do something else. Where is it? Like an exception. On no reverse match. Yeah. On validation error. So here's a validation error. So yeah, you can use this as well. But right now, we're not worried about validation errors yet, because typically speaking, if there's some error, like you don't fill out everything on your post, there'll be some front end error handling. So if I only type this and didn't type text, if I click that, I can say like, hey, this is required. In fact, I can do that inside the post form. Actually, I don't know if I can, but yeah, there definitely is a way to do it. All right. And we'll show you how to do validations later. All right. So cool, we're able to create a post, but now let's actually try to be able to edit a post. So inside of our post detail, let's create like a little edit symbol. So inside of our post detail page, under here, I'm going to import this edit post URL, this vector pen. So if I click that, it's going to throw an error because there's no edit post. So right here, this is supposed to be a button that goes to edit post. So again, let's go through the process of creating a URL for edit post. There's new. We can say edit. So there's the post ID. Post ID / edit. And I don't want to do new post. I want to do edit post. All right. So now in our views, very similar to new post. So I'm going to say edit post, takes in the request, takes in the post ID, and I'm going to say, I'm going to try to grab that post from the database. Post equals post.objects.get, where the ID equals post ID. And I'm going to say, so the first thing I want to do is say, hey, if the form, post form, and then the post form instance can take in, so I want to pass in the instance of this post. So I can say instance equals post, post. And then I want to return, render the request blog post form .html, and we're going to expand on this. And instead of having it be a new post, I'm going to have it be the type of request. Type of request is going to be edit. I'm going to pass that data in there. So similar to how we kind of initially did that, but we're passing in the instance of the post. So the form is going to be pre-filled for us. So if I refresh that, there might be a syntax error. There's no comma right there. Cool, it works. If I go back, refresh, and let's go to edit right there. So notice how I pass that instance, post one's post instance, into the form, and it comes pre-filled with us. But I want to add like a little edit button or something there. So in my post detail page, it didn't work. So post detail right there. Looks like that is not working. That's because I need to import some icons, some Bootstrap icons into my base. So I'm importing, so Bootstrap comes with icons. So I'm importing Bootstrap icons into here. So if I refresh that, there I've got this little edit button right there. It's a little pen. So if I click that, it takes me to my edit post. So again, here's an href, takes me to edit post, passes in the post ID, and I'm rendering this is where that vector pen is, that icon is coming in from. And actually, let's move that down there. Cool. So I got back there, edit there. So now when I actually make an edit and save it, I want it to come back into this edit post and pretty much do the exactly same thing that this did before. So I can pretty much copy this. Well, I'm just going to create that from scratch. So I can say, hey, if if request.method equals post, I'm going to create the form equals post form request.post, but also I'm going to pass in the instance of the post. So it takes in two methods now. And then again, I'm going to say, hey, if form.is valid, so I come down there, form is valid, pretty much do the exactly same thing here, like so. So not committing to it. I'm adding my their first user in the database, so the only user in the database. Updating the publish date because I'm making an edit. I'm saving it, and then I'm returning to the post detail page. I can say else, and then just indent all of that. So now if I refresh this, edited, and click save. Hey, this is my first post edited. This is my content, the content of my first post edited. I go back, and now it reordered everything since the publish date or the updated date is now the most recent. Questions about editing posts? Nope. All right. Last, what's the thing? We create. So we're able, well, first we're reading from a database, we're creating new posts, we're updating posts. Now what's the last CRUD we have to do?
Delete.
Delete. Delete, so path. So pretty much the same thing here. Instead of edit, I'm going to say delete. Actually, I can even delete. So once I go to post ID /delete, it comes down over here. Def delete post, takes in the request, the post ID, and then I'm getting the post from the database, post.objects.get ID equals post ID. And then I'm doing post.delete. So I'm deleting the post directly from the database. I'm going to return the redirect, and I'm going back to the post list. And I'm going to need inside of my post detail. Let's see if I have. Let's look at those Bootstrap icons. Bootstrap 5 icons. More about Cool. So it looks like these are all the icons. I think these are them. Do I have a trash can or something? So I can click on that. I can see how to use it. So it's pretty much this. So I'm going to use the icon font like that. And then I'm just going to copy that there. And then similar to this, copy that there. But instead of the vector pen, I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to use this trash can icon. And instead of going to the URL edit post, I'm going to go to the delete post. So if I refresh that, click there, I've got the edit button. This is my second post, edit. Well, actually, let's go through the whole gambit. So I'm going to create a new post, final post, save it. Cool, I'm at the final post. I'm going to go back here. Here's the final post. Click on that. I'm going to edit, final post edited, click save. All right. Let's go back to the final post edited. There's it's edited. And now if I delete it, it routes me back to the post and no longer that the final post exists anymore. All right. So just a quick recap. Created our URLs. We created our view, our views. Once we create a view, we go ahead and create a template. If there's something that we're using a lot, we created a base template, which consists of all of our HTML. So all our links to our Bootstrap, Bootstrap icons, Google fonts, and also we want to load in our static, our custom CSS, which we created a static directory with a CSS directory inside of our static directory and a blog CSS file. And we're linking that by calling static CSS. So, and then the route to the path to the static directory. And we also need to load all the static files at the very top of our base HTML. So this stuff shows up on every single page. And then we have our block content. This is the content that we want to customize on every single page. So we call it block content. We can call this anything we want. So, but let's just call it content for now. So then when we go to like the post list right there, we need to extend the base HTML by doing extends the name of the app. I'm sorry, the name of the directory, the template directory, blog, base HTML. And we put our block content here because this is the start of the block content where we want to insert this stuff into our base HTML. Then we want to end block that. And we did that for every single detail, block content, form, block content, and also extended the base HTML on all of those as well. Questions about going through the entire CRUD capabilities using the post form model or post form class that we customized? Anything. If we wanted to, we can even put the user here, or I'm sorry, the author. If we refresh that and come here, you can see the author right there. So you can select the author if you wanted to. And if we did that every single time, we wouldn't have to have this part. We wouldn't have to manually grab the author from there. But That was just a design choice that we wanted to make. So what questions do you have? All right, I'm going to stop